On Friday. We welcome now a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. She is Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy, Democrat of Florida. So, Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Give us your take on where we are on this stimulus bill. Do you expect it to pass out of the House on Friday?
Great to be with you, David, and thanks for having me. I do expect the stimulus bill to pass out of the House on Friday. I think there are a few things that we still have to tie up the loose ends, but the reality is that we have got to provide additional relief to the American people as the pandemic continues to rage on. And then you're right to call it a stimulus bill because there are elements of it that not only provide relief, but also provide economic stimulus. And that's really important until we get to the other side of this pandemic.
What specifically will be helping your constituents back in Florida?
Well, there will be direct payment checks, so checks to folks put money in their pockets. But really, one of the most important things is getting shots in arms. It's the most effective way to defeat the virus and end the pandemic. And so there's significant resources for vaccines and vaccine distribution. And I think that's a critical part of getting our economy back on track. When we can get a hold of this pandemic, people will be able to resume their normal lives and will be able to get the economy back on track. Additionally, I'm really proud to say that the employee retention tax credit, which I had gotten into the original CARES package as well as into the end of year package, will be extended to the end of 2021 in the current stimulus package. And that basically has the ability to help 6 million businesses retain workers and keep them tethered to their paychecks as well as to their health insurance. And those are really important things in the middle of a pandemic.
Congresswoman, you mentioned getting shots into arms. You've had some suggestions about how that's being allocated right now, the vaccine to the states, saying we should be taking into account the demographics of the state, not just doing a straight population-based. Explain your concern.
So here in Florida, we have the highest percentage of more mature Americans. And we know that this virus disproportionately affects more mature Americans. They have more severe consequences. And so it's really important that if we want to try to alleviate the pressure on the healthcare system as well as save American lives, that we allocate the vaccines based on the percentage of more mature Americans that each state has. Right now, the formula, holdover from the Trump administration, simply allocates vaccines by population over the age of 18. And it disadvantages states like Florida that need to quickly vaccinate their seniors in order for them to be able to move on to other groups of people. So I'm hopeful the Biden administration will reevaluate the formula that is currently being used and address the needs of our most vulnerable Americans.
So here at Bloomberg, we pay a lot of attention to the markets and what the markets are telling us about the economy overall. There are some early indications, actually, we're heading back toward a hotter economy, something that Jay Powell, the chairman of the Fed, has said he wants. Should we be concerned about it at all? Are you, as a congressperson, concerned about that possibility? If not this time, on this $1.9 trillion, then the next time, because we're told there's another big package coming down the pike.
I think given the economic impact that this virus and this pandemic has had on people, it's a risk worth taking and not really one that I'm too concerned about of overheating the economy. In fact, I was just down on the main street in my community and shop owners are still worried. They still don't see the foot traffic they need to make ends meet. There are still a lot of people who are still suffering, and especially in a community like Orlando, where we are heavily dependent on tourism and high-touch industries where people gather, that hasn't come back yet. So I think we need to address this pandemic and the economic policies or economic consequences, both with speed and scale.
I want to turn to another part of your responsibility. As I say, you're on House Ways and Means Committee. You also now are on the Armed Services Committee, and you have a background having had a career in the Department of Defense. Give us a sense of what you think the big issues are for this administration right now with respect to foreign affairs and particularly military service.
I'm super excited to be back on the House Armed Services Committee and to be vice chair of Intelligence and Special Operations Subcommittee. I think it's really important that we address the range of threats that are facing the country in this moment. And we have seen threats coming in from our near-peer adversaries. We have countries like Russia and China who are using hybrid warfare of sorts to attack our democracy. And we need to have a coordinated response to all of those types of things. And I think it's an exciting time because we have a Biden administration that understands, that America can't do this alone and that we have to do this with our military partners and our allies.
We just heard from President Biden last week in two major addresses, actually, involving foreign policy and the importance of relations, particularly with our allies in Europe, and the issue of China and of Russia as well. What can the Congress do to work with the Biden administration? We typically think of the executive branch we used to serve as taking the lead on foreign affairs.
Right. I used to be at the Department of Defense, and we often execute on that. But I think Congress has a real opportunity to help shape the strategy and the direction that we're going in. And I think the Biden administration has begun to signal to our allies that America is back at the table as a serious partner, and that we need to work together to defend our democratic values and our democratic interests, as well as defending American interests as it relates to the economy and trading. We have actors on the world stage who aren't willing to play by the rules of the multilateral institutions, and we need to work with our allies to bring those people into the fold so that they aren't cheating, whether it comes to cyber attacks or unfair trade practice.
Well, you mentioned cyber a couple of times now, Congressman. I'm really interested in that because we had that massive attack, as you know, through a supply chain issue with a private contractor that we still, I don't think, know fully what happened with that. What needs to be done? What would you advise the Biden administration, given your background, your expertise, what needs to be done to protect us more in cyber?
Yes, I think there's a lot that has to still be done as it relates to cyber. First, we have to really understand the full extent of that SolarWinds hack. But there have been numerous other cyber attacks against the United States, whether it was against our election systems or against our the backbone of infrastructure. And so we have to understand fully those attacks. And then we have to think about what are within our range of responses to hold these bad actors accountable. We can't allow them to attack our country without consequences. And so I think that there's a lot of work that we can do in this space to keep our country safe, to ensure that there is cybersecurity. Additionally, I know that the Biden administration is talking about securing our supply chains, and I think that that is a good thing. But we should not be as dependent on adversaries for our supplies. And that means that, it's not just about domesticating our supply chain, it's also about diversifying our supply chain. And that means working with our allies in our sourcing capabilities for highly sensitive technologies.
Congressman, it's always good to talk with you. Thank you for being here. That's Representative Stephanie Murphy, Democrat